I like big butts and I cannot lie. You other but all right, so listen, we're gonna talk about the butt today, but not that one. And we're gonna talk about the power of but versus because. Okay, so I want to start talking about what we do every day because Neville really does harp on the fact that we should be very aware of where our mind's going day in and day out. And he's being very literal here, okay? Day in and day out means for the next 90 years. Okay. Why? Because we're changing, which means our thought patterns are changing. And really, the heartbeat of manifestation is change, right? That's growth. It's a progress. And yes, there is this thing called the law that seems to respond to those things that are happening within us, right? And we need to be fully aware of how this works. Okay. So one way is in accepting that our minds are trying to protect us. Our minds are trying to will look out for us. And that's not a bad thing, right? Yes, it is trying to protect the ego, which is something that we should get better at not really needing. And I'm not against having the ego, but we need to be molding ego rather than the ego molding us. Okay. And I'm saying this from a psychological, explanation of what the ego is, because I think that there's a lot of, oh my gosh, ego death. Like people romanticize that, right? And yes, your current ego needs to die, but there's still another part of you that still, there isn't anything wrong with you having an ego, right? But ego and narcissism are not the same. When we say, oh my gosh, that guy's a huge ego, that is not the same thing as somebody who's being a narcissist. Okay. Yes, huge ego, but most people mean he's a huge narcissist, right? To have an ego, there's nothing wrong with that. The ego isn't evil. It's protecting us. It's doing what it's supposed to do. It's what evolution designed it to do. Okay? But there are times and moments where ego death is important. And when the Bible uses the word love in the New Testament, when Jesus talks about love or love your neighbor, it's dying to yourself. It's the agape. It's really graphic, actually. The actual metaphor from that language is beheading yourself. So really changing consciousness, right? And so that is what is going on here when we try to fully grasp what changes. It's fully taking and removing, right, any limiting thoughts, any limiting ways of seeing others, any limiting ways of experiencing the world around you, right? And so the whole thing here that I want to explore today is where your mind goes, okay? Because when you start manifesting stuff, okay, and you're like, oh, and you're trying to be in the state, right, of like, I already have it. Okay, I already have it. So I already have my new house. And then your mind goes, I already have the house, which right then you should be like, oh man, I'm stoked. I'm excited. This is going to be so fun, right? You're going to feel safe and free, whatever feelings that you associate with it, right? And then your mind goes, but my current apartment sucks. Or, but my car broke down. Or, and you start filling in the blanks with buts. Okay, that is when you kick yourself out of state. Actively, by the way. And so what you have to do is like, no, I'm happy. And if you want to really take it down to like its fundamental concept here, you are saying that you're happy where you are. But mentally you're saying, I'm happy where my desire is already fulfilled. Do you get what I'm saying? So there is this kind of paradox where you're going to feel happy in your little noisy, like angry neighbor situation that you might be dealing with. And it's not that you have to even be happy necessarily in that moment or in that time. You're being happy here, okay? And you're going in there and you're living as if, right? And you're accepting and embracing as if. But why is it wrong for you then to come out of that and then actually be happy about your situation? There's nothing wrong whatsoever, right? And so, the whole thing is that your brain wants to go to but because you've been taught to think that way. You've been taught to think through the ego, which is self-protecting you. Okay, so you have to think beyond the ego, right? But to think beyond the ego, you have to understand that there is an ego, right? And that's okay, but remember, you have to think beyond it. You can't limit yourself to the ego. And when you do that, you live in the stage of but thinking, right? Like, oh, I have the best job ever. But my current boss sucks. But the income isn't enough, right? Or I can pay all my bills, but I'm almost evicted today. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't deal with stuff and you don't respond to stuff in the 3D, meaning like you don't actively, right, go and say, okay, I got to find a new place or whatever it is. But you do that from the perspective of already having everything that you want, right? And you do that from the belief that whatever it is that you do desire is already done. It's done. It's done. It's done. It's done. That's what amen means. Right? And it's very interesting because the word amen from Hebrew means to hold God accountable, right? And that's super, super important. It's a very, very powerful understanding. Might do a different video just on that, on that word. Because we use that, and most people hear that in a very religious setting, in a religious sense. And it's really just saying, I'm holding the imagination to account. Like, it's going to follow through. It has to, right? That's really what it means. Like, when you hold somebody to account, you're like, you're going to follow through. Right? And so I want you to understand that. Now, there is the power of because, right? So I am healthy because I'm healthy. I have my new apartment because I have my new apartment, right? And what does that conjure up for you? What feelings does it, like, meaning stating it as a fact, not like, for example, some people will say, I am healthy because I work out. No, because then what that means is you're going to have to work out for the rest of your life to feel healthy. Or I'm rich because I have a good job. No, because that means you're going to have that one job or another job like it to keep replacing it, right? No. I'm rich because I'm rich. I'm wealthy because I'm wealthy. I know how to deal with money because I know how to deal with money. I'm in love because I'm in love. I'm married because I'm married. I'm the president because I'm the president, right? You don't create some caveat or some reason. You just are. That's what it is about. So that is the power and the difference between doing the but versus the because the but is always looking out for, how can I protect myself, right? So that's based on fear. That's based on memories that have taught you this might not happen, right? And so this one is, no, that's already happened. And so I love my car because I love my car. Right? I love my wife because I love my wife. I love my family because I love my family. I love my career because I love my career. I love the millions of people who sign my books because I love the millions of people who sign my books. Do you get it? Like, I mean, so you want to choose because, right? You don't want to fall in the trap of but, because the but will keep you from getting what you want. The because will always bring it in because you are it. And that's why.